We are back from Monica's trial. As you know, they start late, they take long breaks, but that's okay because we have one testimony that we didn't get to see yesterday. So before they even start today, we're going to go ahead and finish this last part up, and then we will be good to go for when they start today. And I'm going to move myself in the corner. If you weren't on with me just a little bit ago for the Megan Boswell trial, they are wrapping up and jury will be going to deliberations at some point today. All right, I have it ready to go, so should be good. Let me know if you have any audio stuff that you want me to change, if it's too quiet or too loud.
Present, all counsel present, jury, and also present. Good afternoon. Let me make sure jury and also present. Yeah, okay. I'm telling you, one of these days. You may call the next witness.
Do you solemnly state the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you. Please have a seat and witness stand. And for the record, say and spell your first and last name, please.
Andy Chang, A-N-D-Y, C-H-A-N-G.
Thank you. Sir, can you tell us how it is that you're employed?
I am a detective with the Los Angeles Police Department.
And how many years have you been so employed?
Approximately 18 years.
Okay. And where are you assigned currently?
I'm currently assigned to Risk Management Legal Affairs Division.
Okay. And previously, between 2014 and 2017, do you recall where you were assigned then?
I was working the Gang and Narcotics Division.
What is the Gang and Narcotics Division?
It's a division where we mainly focus on gang crimes and narcotics crimes.
Okay. Is it also a unit that handles surveillance?
Our specific unit, yes. We were the gang field unit, and we assisted homicide detectives with either surveillance or apprehension of people at interest for the homicide case.
Okay. And that would include gang members and non-gang members?
Correct.
In various homicides, correct?
Yes.
All right. And what type of surveillance operations did Gangs and Narcotics Division run back when you were there between 2014 and 2017?
For surveillance, we have plainclothes surveillance and undercover surveillance. Plainclothes being you still identify yourselves as police officers with either police raid jackets or some type of police insignia on yourself to identify yourself as a police officer. And the undercover surveillance would be without any insignia of police at all. You're not identifying yourself as a police officer. You are acting like a normal citizen, conducting surveillance on whoever the target is.
All right. I want to direct your attention back to February 21st of 2017. Were you called out to be a part of a undercover operation by your supervisor at the time?
Yes.
And who was that?
It was a Detective Richard Jaramillo.
Okay. And approximately how many individuals were involved on February 21st in this undercover operation?
It was 5 officers and detectives in total.
Okay. And in addition to you, your supervisor Jaramillo, did it also include Joe Anaya?
Yes.
Okay. And on that particular day, were you partnered up or were you all in separate vehicles?
We were all in individual vehicles.
Okay. Were those unmarked vehicles?
They were unmarked vehicles.
Okay. And can you tell us, when you're working a surveillance operation, how does an active or fluid surveillance operation work, generally? Not specifically, just generally.
I'm sorry, a fluid operation?
Yes.
So a fluid surveillance operation would be, there would be a target that's at interest, at our interest, and we want to make sure that we keep an eye on that target. So generally, there would be one of the 5 officers who have physical eyes on the target, while the other 4 officers assist with the movements of the target. So if the movement goes northbound, instead of following it, we pass that point off to the person that's on the north point, or the west point, or the south point, or the east point, wherever the direction of the target goes. We are able to maintain surveillance on him at all times. That's a fluid surveillance operation.
Okay. And during this type of a fluid or active surveillance, are you in constant communication with the other individuals involved in the operation?
Yes. So the point officer will communicate via the radio to the other officers who do not have a visual on the target to let them know what the target is doing, which way the target is traveling. So we do maintain a constant radio communication with all the other members of the team.
Since you told us that this was an undercover operation, I'm assuming you were in plain clothes that day?
Yes.
And what did that entail, if you recall?
I had a button-down shirt, a pair of jeans, and I believe that was it, and some socks and shoes.
Okay. And were you advised that your task was to follow certain individuals on that particular date?
Yes.
And do you recall who those people were?
It was Ms. Sementilli and Mr. Baker.
Okay. And were you, in terms of conducting this operation, advised that you were assisting LAPD homicide detectives Gene Parshall and Ryan Verna?
Yes.
And did you receive, as you do in every operation, a briefing prior to the operation?
Yes.
And did that include photographs of the target suspects?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a photograph of the defendant, if it could be marked as people's next in order.
140.
Thank you. Showing you Exhibit 140. Were you shown a photograph such as this
Yes.
of the defendant?
Yes.
And were you also shown a photograph such as what you see here in Exhibit 14 with respect to Target Baker?
Yes.
And what was your goal or task on this particular day in February?
On that particular day, our mission was to locate Mr. Baker and find out where his residence was.
Okay. Were you also provided not only with photographs of the 2 suspects, but also with photographs of their vehicles?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have an exhibit that contains photographs of a Ford F-150 registered to the defendant and Fabio Sementilli. Could it be marked as Exhibit 141?
Yes.
And I also have a photograph of Robert Baker's black Ford Expedition that can be marked as People's 142.
Yes.
Thank you. Showing you Exhibit 141, were you provided with photographs, information including license plates, as you see here in Exhibit 141 that was being utilized or owned by defendant Sementilli?
Yes.
Were you also provided with photographs as well as information and 2 different license plates regarding suspect Baker's vehicle, that being a Ford Expedition as seen as Exhibit 142?
Yes.
On that particular day, were you notified by your supervisor, Rich Jaramillo, that the suspects were in the Hollywood area?
Yes.
And prior to that date, had you placed a tracker on defendant Sementilli's, bless you, Ford F-150 as seen in Exhibit 141?
Yes.
Okay. And where was it that you placed on this vehicle?
It was at a car dealership in Thousand Oaks, I believe a few days prior to February 21st.
On February 16th,
Yes, February 16th.
at a Ford dealership, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And what does that tracker provide you with in terms of information?
The tracker provides detectives live location of the vehicle when the tracker is on.
Okay. So it gives you a live feed or a simultaneous feed as to location based on coordinates?
Yes.
Okay. Based on the vehicle tracker that you had placed on the defendant's Ford F-150 on February 16th, did you then make your way over to the Hollywood area?
Yes.
And where were you as you were looking for this particular vehicle that we see here in 141?
I was on Melrose Avenue looking for the Ford F-150 truck being guided by my supervisor, Rich Jaramillo.
Okay. And did you, in fact, locate the vehicle?
Yes,
And when you located the vehicle, did you alert the other members of your team?
I did.
And can you tell us what you saw at that point in time?
I saw Mr. Baker driving the vehicle and Ms. Sementilli sitting in the front passenger seat. And we crossed paths, so I turned around and to follow the vehicle
And where did you follow the vehicle
to a bar called The Parlor on Melrose Avenue.
Is that a bar that's located at 7250 Melrose Avenue in Los Angeles?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a series of 4 different photographs from the parlor bar. May they be marked collectively as People's 143?
Yes.
And there is numbers in the bottom left corner, numbers 5 through 8.
Very good.
Approximately what time at night was it when you saw Baker drive the defendant's vehicle up to the parlor bar?
It was around 8:50 p.m.
Okay. Showing you exhibit 143 that has a red 5 in the bottom left corner. Do you recognize what you see here?
Yes.
And what is this?
That is the parlor bar where Ms. Sementilli and Mr. Baker entered.
Okay. And did you see what they did, either of them, with the defendant's vehicle, the Ford F-150?
They gave it to the valet that was pretty much right in front of the establishment.
Okay. And what did you do at that point?
I parked my vehicle and I made entry into the bar as well.
Showing you exhibit 143 that has a 6 in the bottom left corner. Does this depict the interior of that location?
Yes.
And what did you see when you entered the location?
When I entered the location, I observed Mr. Baker and Ms. Sementilli seated on a like a 2-person booth. So I proceeded to take a seat just several tables over in that same bar area.
Okay. And at this point, given that you were inside of the location with the 2 targets, were you the point person?
I was.
Okay. And did you take any photographs while you were inside of the parlor bar that night?
I did.
Showing you what's been marked as People's 143, page 7. Do you recognize what you see here?
Yes.
And can you describe for us what we see?
Those are the 2 photos that I took of Mr. Baker and Ms. Sementilli seated in the booth.
And you, I assume, were seated near them in order to be able to capture these photographs inside the bar?
Yes.
And approximately how long were you inside of the vehicle? I'm sorry, inside the location. Thank you.
Approximately 30 minutes.
And can you describe what each of the individuals was wearing?
Overruled.
Yes, Mr. Baker was wearing a black leather jacket and a pair of jeans, I believe with some black boots. And Ms. Sementilli was wearing a black evening dress skirt type. And yeah.
And did you notice any facial hair on Mr. Baker that night?
Yes, Mr. Baker had a goatee.
Okay.
Monica did not like that question. I'm going to have to go back later and play it again.
Time period, what was the next thing that you saw happen with respect to these two individuals that you were watching that night?
Mr. Baker and Ms. Sementilli proceeded to walk out of the bar, and they went to the valet stand to retrieve their car.
Okay. And what did you do?
I followed them out to just next to that valet stand.
Okay. And what did you note at that point in time?
While Mr. Baker and Ms. Sementilli were waiting for the car, they began kissing and making out in front of the establishment.
At the valet stand?
Yes,
Approximately how far away were you from the two of them at that point in time?
maybe 2 feet, 3 feet max.
Showing you exhibit 143, which has an 8 in the bottom left corner. Is this what you observed?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know who took this picture?
My supervisor, Rich Jaramillo, took the picture from across the street from his vehicle.
And did you see the Ford F-150 being brought to the valet stand?
Yes.
Okay. And then what did you observe?
I observed Mr. Baker and Ms. Sementilli get into the vehicle, and they left the parlor bar.
And at that point, when you say they left the parlor bar, did you then pass off point to somebody else?
Yes.
And who was that?
It was a Detective Joe Anaya.
At some point after that, based on the communications between your unit, did you go to another location?
Yes.
And where was that?
It was the Dime Dive Bar on Fairfax Avenue.
Keep in mind that this was not even a month
That
later.
location that being marked as People's 144.
In May.
Showing you exhibit 144. It has a 9 in the lower left corner. Is this the location on Fairfax that you drove to?
Yes.
This was less than a month that Fabio had died, and she's just
When you
out
arrived
on
at
the
the
town.
location, were the targets already inside?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. They were not within your eyesight.
They were not within my eyesight.
So what did you do?
I parked near an alley further away from the bar, just listening to my radio communication of what the team was doing.
Okay. Subsequently, did you receive communications that they left that location?
Yes.
And where did you go at that point?
The vehicle traveled westbound on the 10 freeway, then to the 405 north, and it had exited on Sepulveda Boulevard.
And is that where you went?
Yes.
And once you exited onto Sepulveda Boulevard, did you follow the vehicle, the Ford F-150, somewhere?
Yes, I had received communication that the vehicle had parked at a mobile gas station, and shortly after I arrived at the mobile gas station.
Okay. And that mobile gas station, was that on a corner
Yes.
of what two streets?
I believe it was Sepulveda and Saugus.
Your Honor, I have 3 photographs relevant to this particular mobile gas station at 4528 Sepulveda. May they be marked collectively as People's 145, and there's an 11 through 13 in the bottom left corners.
Very good.
When you got to the location, what did you see?
When I got to the location, I saw Miss Sementilli seated inside the truck, and she was crying and either talking to someone on the phone or attempting to talk to somebody on the phone.
And did you see Baker at that point?
He was not in the truck.
Showing you exhibit 145 with an 11 in the bottom left corner. Is this the location that you responded to?
Yes.
Showing you exhibit 145 with a 12 in the bottom left corner. Do these 2 photographs depict the location where you saw the Ford F-150 parked that night?
It's only in this second photo is where the truck was parked. The truck was parked right where the blue vehicle is. Right there, yes.
Okay. And what did you do at that point once you got to this mobile gas station on Sepulveda?
Once I arrived, I had eyes on Miss Sementilli inside the truck, and I was told through radio communication that Mr. Baker had left the truck and that he was walking on foot on Sepulveda Boulevard, just back and forth, quite a few, not too far away, but enough distance where we wouldn't be able to keep eyes on them both. So what our team decided to do was we conducted a rolling surveillance. What a rolling surveillance is we keep switching point frequently back and forth between Ms. Sementilli target 1 and Mr. Baker target 2, so that they're not noticing that cars or people are following them in any way. So that we keep switching point. They have different vehicles that are passing by every time, so that they do not know that they're being surveyed at the time.
Okay. Well, approximately what time of night is it when you are at this mobile gas station?
It was around midnight.
Okay. And so you said that you came to the mobile gas station. Did you park somewhere?
I parked across the street from the mobile gas station on the street side.
Could you see whether or not any of the windows in the defendant's truck were up or down?
Both of the front windows were down.
The front passenger and the driver's seat?
Yes, the front
And
passenger in the driver's seat.
which position was she seated in as you were making your observations by the time you got to the mobile stations?
She was seated in the front passenger seat.
Okay. And you said that you could hear her crying
Yes.
and talking?
Yes.
Okay. And could you hear what she was saying from where you were?
I could not make out what she was saying, but I can hear that she was crying and clearly unhappy about something.
Okay. Approximately how long were you in the position where you were making these observations?
The total time that we were at the gas station was approximately an hour. Within that hour, I switched point with multiple teammates. So at any given time, I could be sitting observing Ms. Sementilli for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then we would switch, and my eyes would be back on Mr. Baker while he was walking back and forth in Sepulveda, and then I would come back and be seated watching Ms. Sementilli again in the vehicle. So to give you a time estimate, I wouldn't be able to, but it was within that hour between midnight and 1 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. And what did you observe the defendant doing in the vehicle, if anything?
The defendant being Ms. Sementilli?
Yes.
She was, I believe, either texting someone or talking to someone. I couldn't make out, but she had her phone in her hand, and she was saying something out loud in tears. So I couldn't tell whether she was talking to somebody on the phone or she was angrily saying something as she was texting somebody on the phone. That I couldn't tell.
Okay. So you heard her talking. You don't know if she was having a conversation or leaving a voice message, for instance?
Yes, I couldn't tell what she was exactly doing.
Okay. And by the way, do you see the defendant here in court today?
Yes.
Can you identify her, please, for the record?
She's wearing a beige blazer, seated on my right.
Thank you. At some point, did you discontinue your surveillance on the defendant and focus on Robert Baker?
Yes.
And what did you observe at that point in time?
I was given information through radio communication that Mr. Baker had jumped onto a bus on Sao Paulo Boulevard. So we decided to move away from Ms. Sementilli and focus our mission on Mr. Baker because that was our mission from the start.
So your entire team followed the bus at that point?
Yes.
Okay. And what, if anything, did you observe at that point as you were following this bus?
The bus eventually stopped at a bus stop somewhere on Van Nuys Boulevard,
Okay.
and Mr. Baker had exited the bus.
And what did you observe regarding Mr. Baker at that point?
Mr. Baker was standing at the bus stop on Van Nuys Boulevard and Burbank Boulevard. I was parked at the gas station in that same corner, and from there I was able to see him calling a taxi cab to grab a cab.
You were close enough that you could hear him?
Yes, my car was approximately 2 to 3 feet away from him, and at one point during the surveillance, he even leaned on my car just as a resting stop for him to, just to rest his body on the car.
And at that point in time, were you able to make any observations regarding the type of mobile phones he had in his hands?
Yes, Mr. Baker had a total of 3 phones on him. He had 2 smartphones and 1 flip phone on his person.
How many of those phones did you actually see him utilize while you were at the corner of Van Nuys and Burbank?
He was using 2 of them, one of them being the smartphone and the other one being the flip phone.
And from your location, given that he was leaning on your car, could you actually hear him calling
Yes.
these cab companies?
Yes.
And at some point, did you observe a cab come and pick him up?
Yes.
And at that point, did he drive out of sight?
Yes.
And what did you do?
Then we and myself, we all followed him, followed the cab that he was riding in.
Okay. And at some point, were you advised by another member of the team following the cab where Mr. Baker was dropped off that night?
Yes.
And in response, did you drive to that location?
Yes.
And was that a location in Glendale?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have 2 photographs of the address at 331 Salem Street in Glendale. May they be marked, please, as People's 146? There's a red 3 in the lower left-hand corner of 1, and a red 4 in the lower left-hand corner of the other. Showing you Exhibit 146, is this the location that you went to after receiving information regarding where Baker was dropped off?
Yes.
Showing you 146 that has a 4 in the bottom corner. The first one had a 3 in the bottom corner. Do these appear to be also photographs of the front entry area into that apartment building?
Yes.
And at that particular point in time, were you advised that Baker had indeed entered the location, or did you see him before he entered?
I did not observe it myself. My teammates told me that he had entered the building.
Okay. And what did you do at that point?
I was told that we were going to place a tracker on his vehicle if his vehicle was in the garage.
Okay.
So I exited my vehicle, entered the building, and into the garage of the building.
And approximately what time is this?
It's approximately 2:20, 2:30, somewhere around there in the morning.
So at this point, we're talking about the date of February 22nd?
Yes.
And did you indeed locate Baker's vehicle inside the parking area, underground parking garage at that location?
Yes.
And again, that was the same vehicle that we saw in People's 142?
Yes.
And where did you find the vehicle inside of the parking garage, if you recall?
It was in the stall 307.
Okay. And what did you do at that point in time?
I placed the tracker on the vehicle.
And at that point, did it have the license plate on it that we see in the upper left corner that starts with a D?
Yes.
And by placing that vehicle tracker, did that allow you to maintain information as well as the homicide detectives with respect to where the vehicle went?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Okay, Cross.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I just had a couple of questions. Your SISS unit at the time,
Stacy Evans.
I'll wait for the end of the question.
you were working in your capacity as a detective with the gangs and narcotics unit?
I was an officer at the time.
Okay. And you were asked to conduct surveillance on individuals that you understood had been targeted for investigation, correct?
Yes.
And those individuals who'd been targeted for investigation had been targeted by these detectives you spoke of, Detective Parshall and Verna?
Yes.
Okay. And those two individuals included Ms. Sementilli, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And on how many occasions, Detective Chang, did you surveil or observe Ms. Sementilli?
Maybe a handful of times, maybe 3 or 4 times in total, including the incidents that we talked about today.
Okay, so including the incident we spoke about today, you surveilled Monica 3 or 4 times?
My memory, it was a while ago, so I can't give you a definite answer, but I believe it was 3 or 4 times.
Okay. The incident we're speaking about today was, I believe, February 21, 2017. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Had you surveilled Monica prior to that date?
Yes.
Okay. And when was that?
I know for sure on February 16th when I placed the tracker on her truck.
Okay. And where did you surveil her? Where were you surveilling her?
She ended up at Thousand Oaks Ford dealership.
Okay. And what did she do after?
I believe once we placed the tracker on the vehicle, that was our mission for the day, so we
Okay.
cleared out. So I do not know what she did afterwards.
Okay. And did you surveil her again between the 16th and the 21st?
I do not recall. I don't think so, but I do not recall.
Okay. How about after the 21st? How many occasions did you surveil Ms. Sementilli?
After the 21st, we did not surveil her. My unit did not surveil her again.
Okay. So your understanding was you surveilled her 3 or 4 times including this surveillance on the 21st of February.
Yes.
You surveilled her once on the 16th, and that was at the Ford dealership where you placed the tracker.
Yes.
But you don't recall what other dates?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay. On any of those other dates that you surveilled Miss Sementilli, did you ever see her with Robert Baker?
Other than the 21st?
Yes.
No.
Detective Chang, you talked a little bit about watching as you observed Ms. Sementilli in a truck with Robert Baker going to, I think you said the parlor bar, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And am I correct that Ms. Sementilli wasn't driving the truck, it was Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Okay. And when the truck, I think you said, was valeted, Mr. Baker got out of the driver's side of the car?
Yes.
Okay. And then you watched them and actually followed them into the bar, correct?
Yes.
And they were there for 30 minutes, you said?
Yes.
Okay. And then when they left, Mr. Baker was also driving the vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. And then the next time you were able to observe the two of them was at this dime bar, correct?
I personally did not see them at the dive bar.
Okay. Were you in that general location?
I was.
Okay. But didn't observe them and then next actually observed them at this gas station you described, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And when you arrived at the gas station, Detective, was Miss Sementilli alone in the car or with Mr. Baker?
When I had arrived, she was alone in the car.
Okay. And you said she was in the passenger seat?
Front passenger seat, yes.
Front passenger seat. And did you make any report of your observations that night?
I did not personally, but Detective Joe Anaya completed a chronology of the event.
Okay. And you were able at some point to review the chronology he wrote of that event?
Yes.
Okay. And was it accurate based on what you observed?
Yes.
Okay. And I believe you testified earlier that when you were observing Ms. Sementilli, you saw and heard her crying. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you were with Detective Anaya at this point?
Can you define with?
Were you in the same location?
We were in two different vehicles, but we were working the same operation.
Okay. And so Detective Anaya was parked in a vehicle, correct?
He, at points of the surveillance, yes.
Okay. I'd like to draw your attention to the point at which you were testifying about seeing Monica Sementilli crying. Do you know where Detective Anaya was when you first observed that?
I do not know where Detective Anaya was when I observed Sementilli crying in the car.
Okay, and where were you?
I was across the street from the mobile gas station, directly looking at the opened front passenger window of the truck.
Okay, so the truck was parked inside the mobile gas station parking lot?
I believe it is their parking lot, yes.
Okay. And you were across the street looking towards the vehicle, the truck, where Mrs. Sementilli was?
Yes.
Okay. And you said that you were able to see from that distance clearly she was crying?
Yes. And I can hear her crying because my window was down as well.
Okay. So from across the street you could also hear her crying?
Yes.
Okay. And you observed this occurring for how much time? I think the chronology says, let's see. Well, you tell me,
Well,
how
excuse me.
long, yeah,
Are you withdrawing the question?
yes, withdraw. Detective Chang, for how long did you observe Ms. Sementilli crying?
Like my previous testimony, it was about an hour's length in time that I was there between the mobile gas station and following Mr. Baker during a rolling surveillance. So I would say when I was parked in front of her, I could at least testify to 5 or 10 minutes of her crying when I was at scene with her observing.
Okay. Did you leave to break off to go after Baker while she was still crying?
Yes.
Okay. So you don't know how long she continued to cry, if she did?
In total, I do not know.
Okay. And you mentioned that you thought she was attempting to text or make a call?
She just had her phone in her hand, and she was looking into her phone as she was crying out loud. So I don't know whether she was texting or talking to somebody on the phone, or she was just searching something on the phone. That I do not know, but I can only testify to what I observed.
Of course. And you never verified whether, that wasn't your job, you never verified whether there was any call made from Ms. Sementilli's phone, correct?
I do not know whether phone calls were made.
Or any text sent?
I do not know whether texts were sent.
Okay. And you testified earlier that with Mr. Baker, you observed him having 2 or 3 different phones?
Yes.
Am I correct that with Ms. Sementilli, you only saw her with a single phone, one phone?
That's all I saw, yes.
Okay. And if someone, if Detective Anaya described Ms. Sementilli as crying uncontrollably, would that be a fair representation of what you saw?
I'm going to object to assume facts, not an evidence.
Sustained.
The crying you saw was in the vehicle, correct?
Was she in the vehicle?
Yes.
Yes, she was in the vehicle.
And Mr. Baker was nowhere around?
Mr. Baker was not in the vehicle.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further by the people?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Detective Chang. You're excused. You may call the next witness.
All right, so right before we watch the person that will be coming up next, couple things. I had to bite my tongue off not to interrupt that just now because I really wanted to say, but were there tears? Because so far, she has not actually had tears or cried about anything. But hey, it sounds like her and Baker got in a fight that night, and so maybe she actually had tears for that. Not over Fabio's death or anything, but over that. This whole time I accuse her of looking like she's faking emotions and being exaggerated with her facial expressions. But I actually thought she did a real thing, and I want to show you her reaction to a question if you weren't on or if you missed it.
Do you recognize what you see here?
Yes.
And can you describe for us what we see?
Those are the 2 photos that I took of Mr. Baker and Ms. Sementilli seated in the booth.
And you, I assume, were seated, what is this?
That is the parlor bar where Ms. Sementilli and Mr. Baker entered.
All right, let's hope that
And
this is the spot
did you
and
see
that we'll
what
go
they
forward.
did, either of them with the defendant's vehicle, the Ford F-150?
They gave it to the valet that was pretty much right in front of the establishment.
Okay. And what did you do at that point?
I parked my vehicle and I made entry into the bar as well.
Showing you Exhibit 143 that has a 6 in the bottom left corner. Does this depict the interior of that location?
Yes.
And what did you see when you entered the location?
All right, I'll go back to it and I'll actually find the timestamp. Let's go ahead and see the next witness coming on the stand.
And for the record, say and spell your first and last name, please.
It's Joe Anaya, Joeanaya.
Thank you. Sir, can you tell us how it is that you're employed, please?
I'm employed as a detective with the Los Angeles Police Department, and in April it'll be 27 years.
Where are you assigned?
I'm currently at Mission Area Detectives.
That's in the San Fernando Valley.
Correct.
Directing your attention back to 2017, do you recall how you were assigned at that point in time?
Yes, I was at Gang Narcotics Division, working the Gang Field Unit, a surveillance apprehension team.
And how many years were you assigned to G&D?
Approximately 7.5 years.
Okay. I want to direct your attention to the date of February 21st of 2017. Were you part of an undercover surveillance operation that evening?
I was.
And were you working with your supervisor, Detective Rich Jaramillo, as well as Detective Andy Chang, who just testified?
Yes, I was.
And on that particular evening, were you directed to follow particular targets?
Yes.
Was one of them Monica Sementilli?
Yes.
Do you see her here in court today?
I do.
Can you identify her, please?
She's wearing a blazer, seated at the defense table.
Indicating the defendant.
Was there also another individual that you were asked to follow?
Yes, it was Robert Baker.
Showing you what's been previously marked as People's 14, we show a photograph of this individual.
Yes, that's him, Robert Baker.
There appears to be a number 2 in the bottom left corner.
Yes.
Now, had you also previously followed the defendant to a Ford dealership on February 16th of 2017?
Yes, I did.
Did you use the vehicle trackers that have been placed on the defendant's vehicle on February 16th of 2017 in order to find her along with Baker on February 21st of 2017?
Yes, I did.
Showing you Exhibit 141 that has a number 1 in the bottom left corner. Is this the vehicle that you saw on February 16th and that you were looking for again on February 21st?
That is the vehicle. I don't see the one on the bottom, but yes, that's the vehicle.
The vehicle is the
The Ford F-150.
Ford F-150 along with the license plate?
Correct.
At some point in time on the night of February 21st, did you find the defendant's black Ford F-150 that we just looked at?
Yes.
Okay. And when you saw her vehicle that night, did you also call Detective Parshall to alert him?
Correct.
All right. How are you dressed on the night of February 21st?
I was wearing civilian clothing. Normally I'd wear just regular attire, jeans, t-shirt.
Okay. And were you also driving an unmarked vehicle that night?
I was.
The first time that you saw the defendant on the night of February 21st, where was that?
That was on Melrose at 7230 Melrose at the Parlor Restaurant at approximately 8:50 p.m.
Is that 7250 Melrose?
It could have been 7250 on the corner.
Let me ask you this. Looking at Exhibit 143 that has the 5 in the bottom left corner, is this the location that you responded to on February 21st?
That's it.
Did you go inside that location?
I did.
When you went inside, did you join Detective Chang?
I did.
And was that in the bar area?
Yes, it was in the bar.
Showing you Exhibit 143 that has a 6 in the left corner. looking at the photograph to the left, is that the area where you joined Detective Chang?
It looks familiar, yes.
Showing you Exhibit 143 that has a 7 in the bottom left corner. Is this what you observed with respect to
The defendant and Baker when you went into that location that night?
Yes.
Now, at some point, did you follow them to another location?
Yes, to 442 North Fairfax in the city of Los Angeles.
And what location was that at the time?
That was the Dime Dive Bar. That's what it was called, the Dime Dive Bar.
Showing you Exhibit 144, these two photographs appears to have a number 9 in the bottom left corner. Is this the location you followed them to?
That's it.
Okay.
And when you followed them to this particular location, did you go inside or did you stay outside?
I stayed outside. I parked across the street and maintained visual on the front door.
You said you were the point person?
I was a point person monitoring the front of the location.
Approximately what time did the defendant and Baker arrive at this location?
Approximately 10 p.m.
Okay. And about 30 minutes later, did you make some other observations?
I did. The defendant exited the front door of the parlor bar onto Fairfax.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense would object as irrelevant, cumulative, based on Detective Lerner's discussion of this already in testimony, and improper character evidence.
Overruled.
Go ahead.
I saw her exit the front door. She sat down at the bench area that's in front of the location there. And the
Location here, the bench that
Correct.
we see in the photographs to the right, like a wooden bench.
that's it right there.
Okay.
She sat down, and at some point, he appeared to be a security guard / host, male black, about 40 years old, walked up to her. They sat down next to her. They talked, and their interaction lasted about 10 minutes as
And-
she smoked a cigarette.
I'm sorry?
As she smoked a cigarette.
And as she was smoking a cigarette, you saw her talking to the security guard or bouncer?
Yes.
And what did you see, if anything, her do?
Objection, irrelevant, improper character evidence, and cumulative.
I believe I ruled on this. Again, it's overruled.
Go ahead.
What I saw was them talking. She began to use her right hand, and as he sat to the right of her, she began to caress his inner left thigh.
Did you see her doing anything else with respect to this bouncer?
Yes, she used her right hand and began to rub the back of his neck.
Was that while she was speaking with him?
Correct.
And did you see what she did next?
She initiated a passionate kiss on his lips.
How long did that go on for?
The kiss was approximately 4 seconds.
Well, I think we
And
figured out
if
what
anything,
started
did
their
she
fight.
do after that?
She went inside.
When she came out from the bar to have this cigarette and you saw this interaction with the bouncer, was she alone
She
or
was
with someone else?
She was alone.
What was the next thing that you saw from your vantage point?
About 10:53, Robert Baker came out alone. He went to the valet to retrieve the pickup truck, the F-150, and then he drove to the rear alley. And my team advised me that he was trying to find a parking spot in the rear alley.
Okay. And at some point were you advised that he went back inside the bar?
Correct. He went inside the bar, out of view for about an hour.
Somewhere around 12 a.m. midnight,
Correct.
did you see something else?
I did not see. I was advised by my team, Detective Whitney, that they re-entered the pickup truck. Baker was driving. The defendant was in the front passenger seat. And at that point, we resumed our surveillance in the vehicles and followed them.
When you said they, are you referring to the defendant and Robert Baker?
Correct.
Okay. And were you advised that they came out from the back door and then entered the defendant's vehicle?
Correct.
And did you see where Baker drove at that point?
Yes, we followed the vehicle. They didn't make any stops to the 10 freeway, then to the 405 North transition. And at that point, Baker exited the Ventura exit off of the 405 freeway that kind of drops you off onto Sepulveda Boulevard.
Okay. So now we're talking about any observation at this point is on February 22nd of 2017, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And did you observe him stop the vehicle at some point?
Yes, he came to an abrupt stop in the mobile parking lot at 4528 Sepulveda Boulevard. And then he immediately got out of the vehicle, slammed the door, and briskly walked away eastbound on Dickens Street.
Okay. Showing you Exhibit 145. Do you recognize what you see here?
Yes.
Is this the mobile station that you followed the defendant and Baker to?
Yes.
And when you said he stopped in the driveway, is this the driveway area?
It was more onto the flat surface in the mobile, like where the blacktop is at. To your left a little bit, right around there.
And did you see where he parked the vehicle?
It was right where your finger last was.
Okay. Showing you Exhibit 145. The one we were pointing to was 145. It has an 11 in the bottom left corner. Now I'm pointing to 145 that has a 12 in the bottom left corner.
Okay.
Does this photograph, these two photographs, depict the location where eventually he parked before F-150?
No, the other one showed where he parked. Later on, she moved the car, which was what you were showing me. But right here on this photo
Yes.
is where he stopped in the middle of the pumps, a little bit to your right, around that area right there. Correct.
Okay. So at some point, after you saw him get out of the vehicle from the driver's side, did you see what the defendant did?
The defendant, later on, she moved the vehicle to that other spot that you showed me.
Looking at 145 with the 12 in the bottom left corner.
Correct.
Is this the location where the defendant then parked her vehicle?
Yes, where that blue car approximately would have been.
Okay. Showing you Exhibit 145 that has a number 13 in the bottom left corner. Just to orient us, the area that I'm pointing to in the bottom left corner, would that be the same area that we see in 145, page 12?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And so you observed the defendant get into the driver's seat and move the vehicle to this particular location as we see in Exhibit 145, page 13?
No, I didn't make that observation.
You were advised of that by others in your unit?
Correct. I maintained surveillance on Mr. Baker.
Okay. And did you see where Mr. Baker went?
Yes, he kept walking eastbound on Dickens and through the neighborhood there, very quiet, small street. And then eventually he kept walking very briskly to a north direction and ended up on Ventura Boulevard.
And what did you do at that point in time?
I continued to follow him with the team. We conducted a rolling surveillance and maintained a visual on him. And he walked quite a ways. I would say at least a mile or so.
And when you said you had a rolling surveillance, that means you're passing off point between the individuals in your unit at that point?
Correct. Just to minimize your exposure to your target, you just kind of leapfrog and let the target come to you as you're parked, and you're trying to minimize exposure to that target and minimize exposure.
As Baker was walking, what did you see him do, if anything?
I saw him on his cell phone. It was dark, and I could see his cell phone lighting up, and he was talking on it from approximately 6 to 8 inches. He held the phone away, so I assumed he was on his speakerphone.
Can you describe the phone?
One of the phones I saw was a large square type smartphone, and the other one was a flip style cell phone.
Okay, so you saw him using two different phones?
Correct.
Okay. And did you follow him to a particular location?
I did. I went back to check on the defendant. In between that time, we were going back and forth between both targets, but I did eventually make the call to go back to see what the defendant was doing.
Okay. And when you went back to see the defendant, was she in the still in the driver's seat at this point after moving the car?
Yes, it was after she had moved the car to that spot off of Saugus. That side street is to the east is Saugus, and she was parked where the inner car was. I was parked right next to her, to the left of her.
Okay. And did you have any windows in your vehicle down at that point?
I did. I had my right passenger window open, which was the window closest to her window.
That would be her driver's window?
Correct.
And could you hear what she was doing?
Yes, she was crying uncontrollably. She was using her cell phone and looking down at it. I remember her saying, "I'm so stupid," and repeating that 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
And she was continuously crying.
Do you know if she was speaking into the cell phone at that point in time?
She appeared to be, yes.
Okay. Could you hear her speaking?
I could.
Okay. After that, did you go back to a bus stop location?
Yes, I determined to stop the surveillance on the defendant and just focus on Baker, since he was walking around. At this point, he was on Van Nuys walking northbound on Van Nuys Boulevard from Ventura.
Okay. And did you see what he did there?
Yes, he eventually got onto an MTA bus and took the bus north on Van Nuys Boulevard to Oxnard, and at that point is where he got off the bus. It wasn't that far,
Okay.
but he jumped on and then jumped off about 2 majors later.
Okay. And what did you see him do at that point, if anything?
He began to walk back towards the direction he came from, which was southbound on Van Nuys, and then eventually he came to a stop at the southeast corner of Burbank Boulevard and Van Nuys. There's a bus stop there, and I think that's also a mobile gas station.
And at that same time, as he was walking, did you see whether he was using his phones again?
Yes, he was using his phones and talking on 2 different phones.
And what did you see him do next, if anything?
At that time, eventually I was alerted by a teammate that a cab company, United Cab, picked up Baker and proceeded to drive away.
And did you follow Baker in the cab?
I did. I made the determination to have myself and Detective Whitney to go ahead of the surveillance to try to get there before he did, and guessed that he would be returning to the area of Salem Street. And at that point, I was able to get to that street before the cab arrived at that street at the corner of Salem and Central in the city of Glendale.
And did you see Mr. Baker get out of the cab?
I did.
And did you see where he went?
Yes, I followed him on foot. I got off of my vehicle, and I followed him from across the street, followed him to 331 Salem. I don't know if it's street or avenue.
Okay. And did you see him go into that apartment building?
Yes, I did. After he used the intercom to try to get buzzed in, it appeared as he waited for a few minutes, and at that point he must have gotten buzzed in. He opened the door, and he went out of my view into the Veteran Village apartments.
Okay.
Is that the location, the Veteran Village apartments that we see in Exhibit 146 that has a number 3 in the bottom left corner?
Correct, that's the place.
Okay.
Approximately what time was that?
It was at approximately 2:30
In
p.m.
the morning on February 22nd?
Correct, 2:30 a.m.
Thank you, I have nothing further.
Mick Ross.
Thank you. Detective Anaya, I think I just heard you say that you, when you were following Mr. Baker at the end of your testimony, you had assumed he was going back to the Salem address, and that's how you knew where to go?
Correct.
So you already knew where Mr. Baker was residing?
No.
Well, why did you assume he was going back to that address?
Because earlier in the day, around 8 o'clock p.m. on the 21st, is when I was monitoring the GPS tracker on the defendant's truck. Mm-hmm. I saw that she was headed in an easterly direction, and at that point, I figured she might meet up with Mr. Baker.
Okay, I'm curious. I'm sorry, I'm going to let you
I'm
finish.
sorry, I should have continued. So then when I was monitoring the cell phone and getting the team together to conduct our operation, I continued monitoring the phone, and I saw that she had stopped in the area of Salem and Central in that vicinity of the 300 block of Salem.
Okay, so you had actually surveilled Ms. Sementilli earlier that same day?
No. I was using the electronic device and monitoring her activity from there.
Okay.
So that kind of surveillance, yes, but not physical.
Okay, so you don't know if Robert Baker was driving the truck or Ms. Sementilli was driving the truck. All you knew was from the tracker that the truck was at that location, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And had you surveilled Ms. Sementilli prior to February 21st?
I did.
Okay, on how many occasions?
Just on the 16th of February, a few days before.
Okay, and that was the only time before the 21st?
Yeah, I can remember that was the only time on the 16th.
Okay, and how about after the 21st? On how many occasions did you surveil Ms.
None that I
Sementilli?
could remember.
Okay, and am I correct that the way that you write down anything you feel is important from this surveillance is you wrote, in this case, a chronological log. Is that correct?
I did.
Okay. And you did it specifically for what you observed on February 21st that you felt was important?
Yes, that I felt was important, that was relayed to me either through my team or from my own observations, correct.
Got it. Okay. And am I right that when you first observed on the 21st, seeing Robert Baker and Monica Sementilli, Robert Baker was driving that truck, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you observed him drive that truck to this parlor bar, is that right?
I just observed him in front of the parlor bar. I didn't see him drive up to it.
Okay.
That's when I first spotted them, was at the parlor bar.
Okay. And did you surveil him getting out of the vehicle?
Yes.
And he got out of the driver's side of the vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. And then you testified earlier, we don't have to go through it, but you were there approximately 30 minutes and saw the two of them inside, correct?
Correct.
And then you saw them leaving, and did you observe them leaving at the valet?
I did.
Okay. And you saw them engaged in a kiss?
I did from the inside of the establishment. They had a large window, and I was inside. They were outside. I had a clear, unobstructed view of both of them hugging and both of them kissing multiple times.
Got it. Okay. And then you followed them over to this establishment, the Dime?
Correct.
Okay. And let me ask you a question. this occurrence you testified about, seeing Monica come out of the establishment, and I think you described her having some interaction with this African American gentleman.
Yes,
You observed that,
I did.
and you were able to see clearly what occurred, correct?
Yes.
And am I correct? How long was that event? How long between the time she came out of the establishment and smoked a cigarette and had some kind of interaction to when she went back in? To the
Approximately 10 minutes.
Okay. And am I correct that at no time during that entire 10 minutes you saw the things you saw? Did you ever see Robert Baker?
Not during that time.
Okay. You never saw him anywhere in the vicinity outside?
No.
And you never saw him anywhere in the vicinity inside the bar? You were not inside the bar?
Correct. None of us were inside.
Okay. And Detective, after you followed Mr. Baker driving the truck with Ms. Sementilli inside, you testified about seeing him stop the vehicle at this mobile gas station, right?
Yes.
And you saw him slam the door and storm away.
Yes.
Okay. And the next time you ever saw Mr. Baker was heading towards this residence in the Veterans Village, correct?
No. I followed him immediately from when he left the truck and continued to follow him while he was on foot and I was in my vehicle.
Okay. But you followed him as he was headed towards the Veterans Village?
Not necessarily. That eventually happened. But in between, about an hour and a half worth of him walking to Van Nuys Boulevard, northbound, got onto a bus, like I mentioned previously.
Right.
And then jumping on the bus, getting off the bus, walking back. That took well over an hour for all that to happen. And then eventually is when the cab picked him up. And then he proceeded to Salem and Glendale.
Got it. I wasn't clear, and I apologize.
No, sorry.
I wasn't. He didn't go any other location other than between where you first saw him after he left the truck and Valley Village. He didn't make any other stops.
Not to talk to anybody, if that's what you're insinuating. He didn't talk to anybody, he didn't stop anywhere else. He did the things I had previously mentioned, though.
He took the bus, then he took the cab and
Correct.
went to Valley Village.
Correct.
Okay, now. Am I correct that you testified that you saw from very close up, sitting right beside Miss Sementilli, her crying uncontrollably?
Yes.
Okay. And that was because you pulled into a parking space, I think you described it as a stall, right beside Miss Sementilli?
Correct.
And at this point, she was no longer in the passenger seat, she was in the driver's seat, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And Detective, you specifically, when you pulled in, you were there monitoring Monica Sementilli, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you were parked immediately to the left of her?
Yes.
Okay. And her window was down and your window was down?
That is correct.
Okay. And you could both see and hear her crying uncontrollably?
Yes.
And she wept in a very loud manner?
Yes.
And she wept for approximately 20 minutes?
I would say about 20 minutes.
Okay. And you also said that while she was weeping and crying uncontrollably, she said a couple of times, "I'm so stupid, I'm so stupid."
Yeah, at least a few times.
Okay. But you weren't sure, you saw a phone, but you weren't sure whether she was on the phone, was texting, or making a call?
It sounded like to me she was either talking to someone or leaving a voicemail, but trying to communicate, not just staring at her phone.
Okay. And what did that phone look like?
I don't remember seeing her phone very well because she kept it at her lap and I could see the illumination from the screen, but I could not see the phone itself.
So at no time during this 20 minutes did you ever see a phone?
No.
And at no time did you later attempt to verify whether the phone was actually in use? Am I
No.
correct?
And I actually did hear the phone ringing as well.
Okay. Did you see her answer the phone?
No, I saw her. It seemed like to me she was making the call. I never heard her phone ring. I could just hear the call going out, like ringing from her end, not from a cell phone. It's like a receiving end, more like an outcalling end.
So,
You know when you have your phone on speakerphone?
yes, sir. So what you think you heard was a ringing as if her phone was on speakerphone in her lap, and she was trying to call somebody else.
Yes.
Okay, but you never heard the ringing. You never could determine whether anybody answered or she was actually ever talking to anybody.
That is correct.
Okay, got it. Detective, I just want to be sure. The only time that you yourself ever were surveilling Monica Sementilli, that you saw her with Mr. Baker, was on the 21st. Is that right?
The 21st into the 22nd.
Okay. That was the only time of the times you surveilled her that you saw them?
Together? Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing further.
You're welcome.
Anything further by the people?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Detective Anaya. You are excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Let's take our afternoon recess for 15 minutes. Be back in 15 minutes.
All right, there is one more testimony that we haven't seen and we're about to, but I found that timestamp. So what I was saying earlier is during this entire trial, I feel like Monica fakes her emotions, like her sadness, or if she's just trying to look a certain way for the jury. And I have found her to be trying too hard, and so it's not believable. But today, watching the first person get on the stand, and while he was testifying, he was asked a question that Monica did not like. And it was a real reaction, so I was going to show it to you. Okay, it's right around here. It's...
And can you describe what each of the individuals was wearing?
Oh, really?
Yes,
I just got a kick out of that. She looked so disgusted with that, and that was an honest face and reaction. So I feel like I'm pretty right about all the other times of like her crying and there's no tears. All right, before I put on this last one, I wanted to say that I'm glad that we had this as like a makeup catch up to this trial, because they are not doing this trial till next Tuesday. The judge said since there's Valentine's Day on Friday and since it's President's Day Monday, that they're taking an extended break. And if you've been following along with me, they have greatly annoyed me. This California court has been so bad with times and doing extended quick breaks or extended lunches. They wouldn't start for like an hour, hour and a half on time. So the fact that they pushed this a week is not surprising at all, and I'm glad that we are now caught up and don't have to sit through more of the torture that they put us through. Let me make sure there's no comments I missed. Oh, you're 30 minutes behind? Yeah, you'll catch up really fast. And then, yeah, like I said, they don't have court until next Tuesday, so we'll all have to wait on them. yeah, traumatizing her daughters. They thought that somebody randomly broke in to rob them and killed their dad. And yet she would go out late at night, even like from within a week of him dying, she was going out and staying out all night. And these poor girls are home by themselves. One of them, I believe it was Jessica, was giving her mom a really hard time because her sister would be gone and working and things like that. And then Monica could be out till 4 in the morning. I just feel horrible for them. And if you didn't watch, it's probably been a couple days, but I was telling my live viewers that the girls seem to be doing really well in life. They both have careers and seem happy. So that's good because this has been a lot. All right, let's watch the last one until next Tuesday.
Jury and alternate president, you may call the next witness.
Thank you. The people call Detective Steve Castro.
You can please face me and raise your right hand. Thank you. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat. And for the record, say and spell your first and last name, please.
Steve Castro, Stevecastro.
Thank you. Detective Castro, are you currently employed?
I am.
Where are you employed?
The Englewood Police Department.
Okay. Back in 2017, what was your occupation?
I was a homicide D3 detective with the Los Angeles Police Department assigned to Operation Valley Bureau.
And overall, how long have you been a sworn peace officer?
34 and a half years.
Okay, so you went from LAPD to Englewood?
Yes.
All right. Back in the time frame of 2017, can you explain what your role was?
Yes, I was a D3, a detective supervisor in charge of an entire table as a coordinator. And I was in charge of 6 detectives.
Did you at some point, was that in a homicide unit?
That's correct.
Okay. And where was that homicide unit out of? What area of Los Angeles?
We worked out of the Van Nuys station.
During that time, did you supervise some detectives that we've heard from? A Verna, a Parshall, did you supervise them?
Yes.
And then how does that work as far as your rank? We're a D3 as opposed to somebody who's in homicide as a detective?
Yes, when you become a detective, you become a D1 where you're an investigator. Then you can promote to a D2, which you're a supervisor. And then you promote to a D3, which now you're a supervisor in charge of the entire squad.
January of 2017, how long had you been in LAPD, the homicide unit in the Valley?
Well, I was working North Hollywood homicide in 2005. We became centralized in 2015. So out of Valley Bureau homicide, approximately 2 years.
And then how long overall in homicide?
18 years.
Okay. Did you respond to a radio call then of an occurrence that occurred at 5012 Queen Victoria Street, or road actually, in Woodland Hills on January 23rd, 2017?
Yes.
Did you go to that location that night?
I did.
Exhibit 9, which is on the screen, page 8. Is that the location that you responded to?
Yes.
About what time did you get there?
I'd have to look at the crime scene log to be exact, but I'm thinking somewhere around 7 p.m., maybe 1900 hours, something to that effect.
And when you got there, do you recall who was there? Not every single person, but who had charge of the scene?
Well, once we arrived, we were in charge of the scene, but I remember there being a possible captain there, a couple detectives, some officers that were there. The yellow tape was up.
Was that case then assigned to Detectives Parshall and Verna?
Yes.
Were they with you?
They arrived a little after me.
And then when you're at the scene, what did you proceed to do?
So when I'm at the scene, I basically delegate. We knew that on that night that the detectives, the lead detectives, were going to be Detective Parshall and Verna. They're assigned prior. That week you're on call, you designate whoever the next person is up. So they were the lead detectives, and then there's 4 other detectives, and I usually delegate to them which one's doing the crime scene, which one is helping out with interviews or looking for surveillance, things of that nature.
Speaking of surveillance, did you yourself locate some surveillance?
Yes.
Okay. What's already been marked as Exhibit 9, page 4. What's circled right here with the red circle, did you recognize that while you were there in person, that location?
Yes.
Was there a video camera right there?
There was.
And Exhibit 9, page 5, a close-up there, was that a video camera or surveillance type equipment that was affixed to that structure right there?
Yes.
On People's 9, page 4, can you tell us in the orient what street is this that's running from the bottom to the top of the photograph?
I believe that's Queen Victoria.
And then the street at the bottom that intersects it along the bottom right here.
Oh, I forget the street, but that street goes all the way up to Ventura.
Is it Oakdale?
That's correct. Yes.
Did you make an attempt then to retrieve the video surveillance from that location?
We viewed it.
You viewed it. Who
Yes.
did you view it with?
Detective Bucknell.
Okay. So you went to that actual location, and did you meet someone at the location who showed you the video?
Yes, I believe, I don't remember who it was, but yes.
Okay. And that was the day of the murder?
Yes. Or right around there, yes.
Okay. And if I may, has it already been marked? What's already been marked as People's 19, if I may play a video. The Queen Victoria surveillance video, sorry. Just to make sure, because on 19 we have multiple videos. If I may play that. Well, if you could just pause it for 1 second right there. So we're just pausing it right there. That photograph up there, the street that runs from left to right, what street is that? There's a car traveling on it.
That's okay.
Okay, so is that the same view that we saw earlier? And then the street that, if you were to go to the right, does that go up the hill to the Sementilli residence?
That is correct.
Just switching back very quickly, that's the view from this camera then looking in the direction of that car that was traveling, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Does that video then that you just watched in court depict what you saw that day when you viewed the video at that location?
Yes.
And was that showing the two, let's call them joggers wearing the hooded sweatshirts?
Yes.
What's been marked as People's 19, page 21. Is that a screenshot then of what we just watched on the video?
It is.
Okay. Did you note the timestamp that was on the video while you're watching it live that day on the 23rd of January 2017?
Yes.
And did you note the timestamp on it if it was accurate?
It was off.
How was it off?
Exactly what it says there, 1 hour fast.
So the timestamp showed 1 hour fast.
Correct.
Okay. So if the timestamp is 17:18 on the actual video, what is that in regular time?
That would be 5:18.
Okay, and so then you were able to determine that the video was actually at 4:18 p.m.?
Yes.
And how did you determine that?
By looking at the video and then comparing it to the real time.
Okay. All right, and then there's another video. Did you also look at a video of a car leaving this area and take that as part of your evidence.
Yes.
I have a second video. It's also on People's 19. Porsche leaving the scene. I could play People's 19. Okay. The video up on the screen and that Porsche leaving, that's the same intersection we've been talking about now, leaving from the direction of the Sementilli residence, leaving and going right on Oakdale, is that correct?
That's right.
And exhibit 19, page 23, just for reference, is that a still shot of what we're looking at on the video. And again, 1 hour ahead.
That is correct.
So that's at 4:53 p.m.
Yes.
Okay. Did you put out some type of crime broadcast
No.
regarding this?
A crime alert.
Okay, what is that?
Yes. A crime alert, we manufacture that at the station, and then we put information of what we're looking for in a certain situation, in this case, this murder.
And we have People's Exhibit 7 then. Is this an example of some of the crime alerts that you helped to create?
Correct.
What's the purpose of this?
This is for the purpose of police officers that go out and patrol. They're aware of the situation, they're aware of this flyer, they're aware of what took place, and they're aware of what we're looking for.
And then what do you put on as far as the photographs? What are the photographs that you put on this crime alert?
Well, in this case, we determined these two individuals to be the suspects. The vehicle up top is the vehicle that the victim owned, not exactly his vehicle, the exact same vehicle though, but not his. And then we put a little narrative of what we're looking for.
Does this go internally then within law enforcement?
Yes.
Does it go out to the public at all?
No.
Did you do anything to alert the public that you need their help or assistance with these photographs of the two individuals or the car?
What I did was what we always do on a case like this, we put out a press release. And
when
that
you
was
say
done as well.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That was done as well.
And when you say a case like this, what do you mean?
Well, a murder in this situation, we usually put out press releases on that.
For the press release, and then did you release these photographs of the two individuals jogging, if you remember?
I don't remember if we did immediately or not. I don't recall.
Now, while you're at the scene, was there anything else specific that you did at the scene aside from looking for the videos and directing individuals to do different tasks?
Well, like I said, when we arrived there, we looked at the crime scene. We tried to identify evidence, whether it be biological, trace, technological. Door knock neighbors. I know I went there the next day and door knocked a few neighbors myself. I don't know specifically what you're asking, though, in regards to what else I did.
That's fine. Now, did you also receive a call from a Salma Cherry on June 25th?
Yes.
And what did he tell you?
He was giving me information of when he last spoke to the victim. He identified himself as being don't remember, a co-worker or his boss. I think it was his boss, and he had informed me that he spoke to the victim on that day of the murder.
Did he tell you if you received any voicemails from that victim, Fabio?
Yes.
What did he tell you about that?
That the victim had left a message on his, I don't remember if it was a cell phone or machine.
Okay, do you recall what time that message was?
I believe it was 4:27 p.m.
Okay. Does that assist you then in a timeline as to when the victim was obviously still alive?
Yes, he was alive at 4:27 p.m. on that day.
Now, as far as an autopsy, well, not an autopsy, but, well, an autopsy. in Los Angeles, is it customary then for a victim to have an autopsy when there's a suspicious death or somebody was murdered or something of that nature?
Yes,
Did you attend the autopsy?
I did not.
Did you end up ultimately booking some evidence into custody from the autopsy?
I did not, but I signed a property report that was prepared by Detective Parshall, who did book evidence from the coroner's office.
So did Detective Parshall then bring you the victim's what we call a bloodstain card, item 72?
Yes,
What is that?
that is a bloodstain card that is obtained by the coroner's office as a reference from the victim.
So the victim's blood.
Correct.
Okay. And then item 73, victim's clothing, was that booked, or you signed off on that to be booked by Detective Parshall as well?
I did,
And then item 74, victim's haircut,
as well, yes.
and you signed off on that as well.
I did.
On March 20th, 2017, did you receive a call from Feidy, F-E-I-D-Y, who represents Cody? We've talked about Cody as a company regarding Fabio's life insurance policy.
I did.
And what were you informed about that?
I was informed
So ruled.
I was informed that there was a life insurance policy that was on the victim.
Okay, did they tell you how much it was for?
Yes, 1.6 million, I believe.
And did they inform you who the beneficiaries were of this life insurance policy?
They did.
Who did they tell you?
They said it was the victim's son, wife, and 2 daughters.
Okay. Now, as far as if anyone had been cleared, did you have any conversation about if people needed to be cleared in order to receive life insurance?
Yes.
What was that conversation?
The conversation was that I instructed the insurance company not to release any funds pending further investigation until everyone's cleared.
And is that customary in the homicide investigations that you've been part of?
Yes.
On March 22nd, 2017, this is following the death of Fabio, did you receive a voicemail from the defendant inquiring about insurance?
Yes,
And by the way, did you ever meet face to face with the defendant?
I did.
Okay, do you see her in court?
Yes.
Can you please identify where she's sitting and what she's wearing?
She's sitting with a white sweater to the right of counsel.
And was there anything unusual about this particular voicemail?
Yes.
Can you please explain that?
It was a voice message from the defendant, and she was inquiring. She was upset why her
Overruled.
Insurance funds were not being released at the time. She wanted to know why. She expressed that she had financial issues and demanded a phone call back.
And was this voicemail to you or someone else?
It was to me, but she wanted a call back from myself or Detective Parshall.
At this point, were you the lead detective on the case handling it?
I was the supervisor of the case.
Okay. So during the call, did she complain about any of the detectives on the case that reported to you?
Overruled.
I don't recall if she specifically complained about the detective. She was upset that the money from the insurance company was being withheld.
After you got that voicemail, then what did you do?
Well, I thought it was pretty significant, so I called Detective Parshall over, and I wanted him to listen to the message as well.
And why did you go to Detective Parshall specifically?
Because Detective Parshall was the lead detective, and I wanted him to be aware of this voice message.
Now, was this voice message recorded in any way?
It was recorded on the messages in the main line for Valley Bureau Homicide.
Okay. Did you memorialize then this message in writing on April 27th, 2017?
I did.
Why did you do that?
Because it was a pretty significant message. I had never received a message like that from a beneficiary.
And again, did it come on your particular voicemail?
Yes.
Is there a reason why, did you save that voicemail?
I did not save the voice message.
Is there any reason why you didn't save it, if you recall?
All I remember is calling over Detective Parshall, and I told him, listen to this message, and he did. I go, do you want me to contact her? and I'll take the heat for delaying the funds because I know he had a pretty good rapport with the defendant.
Okay. Did you attend the memorial for Wella, or held by Wella for Fabio on May 22nd, 2017 in Woodland Hills?
I did.
Did you go with anyone in particular?
Yes.
Who did you go with?
Detective Parshaw.
Was there a reason why you went to the memorial?
I believe we were invited to begin with, and I believe Detective Parshaw's partner at the time was not available.
Okay. Do you know who you were invited by?
The defendant.
Okay. So when you went to the memorial, can you describe what it was?
Yes, it was a memorial. Very nice, actually. A lot of rooms. They had a board where people would write. It's more of a celebration of life type of thing. Their memories of the defendant. Nice gathering. Things of that nature. It was nice.
Exhibit 90s on the screen, page 3, is that what you described as part of the board where people wrote messages?
Yes, it was a wall. Yes.
And then showing people's 90, page 4, again, this exhibit was where people could write.
Yes.
And not visible in the photograph that's up on the screen, but were there photos of Fabio around this memorial?
Yes.
Exhibit 90, page 5, did you see those individuals there?
I saw the defendant there, and I possibly saw the two women with her. I don't specifically recall them.
Okay. Did you talk to the defendant at this memorial?
Yes.
What did you talk about?
Well, she gave us a tour, basically, and showing us around and things of that nature.
Did she tell you anything about her relationship with Fabio?
Yes. How special?
Go ahead.
Sorry. How special it was. How in love she was. How he was her soulmate. How hard it would be to continue her life. Things like that.
Now, during this memorial, did she address the audience or the people that were there?
She did.
And what did you see her do?
There was a gathering of people, and she addressed the entire audience and spoke about Fabio.
Okay, did she sing anything?
She did.
What did she sing?
So roll.
I believe it was I Did It My Way.
And was it just her up on the stage singing that?
I believe so. I don't know for sure, but I believe so.
Okay. After the memorial, then, what kind of role did you continue to have, if any, with the defendant specifically?
I believe that was the last day I spoke to her and saw her myself.
Were you involved at all in the arrest that occurred then on June 14th, 2017, which would be, a month or so after this event?
No.
Thank you. I have no more questions.
Let me see counsel sidebar.
All right, that wraps up the rest of what we were missing. Yeah, kind of weird that they had a memorial for him, but that Monica decided to get up and sing a song. Very random. Okay, I saw that you said the dress. I have to go back and look. I don't know if I can find it. Maybe I'll just have to do it on my own time. So the rest of the plan for today is I'm going to hop back over for the Megan Boswell trial. They were doing their closing arguments later today, and then the jury will deliberate. So that's pretty good. It's moving right along. Monica's won't be back until the 18th, so next Tuesday. And then we are going to do day 2 of the Rose Petal murder. Now, yesterday, me and Kathy were not happy about how this trial's been going. So we decided to do catch up with this today, and we hopped over to the Rose Petal murder, which I knew no details on, but I have the details now. So if you were on with me yesterday and you wanted more info, just pop back in the beginning of that one, and I'll just say it all first. If you didn't watch any of it with us yesterday, my big takeaway from it is that this trial is going to be very messy. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of illegal things that have gone on and all these random parties. So we're going to break it down, and then we will watch day 2. All right, well, if you watched with me here, or if you watched over at my other live, thank you so much for tuning in and catching up with me. And I will be back on in about 2 hours to do the Megan trial and then the Rose Petal murder. All right, thanks for watching.